Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk.
Hello!
Hola, 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 hola.
So at some point, if you hear a great disturbance, it's because there's a very tiny bug flying around.
It's like a gnat, and it's being annoying.
It's like you won't see it for minutes, and then all of a sudden it's
Trying
dancing
to get your
on,
eyeball?
Yeah, or dancing on the end of your nose or whatever. So if you hear a crash and me swearing, that's why.
They keep looking at my plants because I know I've got the stuff over there, and so the bugs will sometimes come in here and hang out, but there's nothing around them, so it's just that one little gnat.
Frickin' that.
Yes. When we went up to the cabin, my cousin kept leaving the door open, and I was like, dude, there were no bugs in this house when we got here. Stop propping the door open. Damn it. So by the time we left, at least one mosquito had gotten in there because I had bites. And then the flies are up there are the worst, but it's so wet up there. Mm-hmm. It was raining when we were there, and down here it was bone dry. So, yeah. There's so many mosquitoes because there's so much water up there. Oh, and we found, because we have a cistern for water up there, and it's buried, so that doesn't freeze, but it was almost out. Oh. So, by the time we shut things down last year, we were trying not to use that water anymore than we had to. I need to clean this dish with one drop of water. Okay, I got this. But the locals showed him where a stream was. Oh. So he was actually able to fill it up with this special thing he got, and then it filters. Oh, okay. And then he filtered and poured it down into the cistern and refilled it. Nice. It took him hours upon hours because he'd go and he'd get more, and then he'd come up, and then he'd have to wait while it filtered. And then, God, he was like each time took 2 hours for each fill up or something like that.
Wow.
Yes,
that is so much more patience than.
Oh yeah, he's always had more patience than I have. That's a given right there.
Yeah.
I'm very impatient.
Same.
What do I want? Whatever it is, I want it now.
That's right.
That's my saying right there. He's always been chiller, too. I'm the hyped up aggressive
I'm not going to say that everyone is more chill than you are, but
a lot of people are more chill.
Most people are.
Yeah. I was talking with a high school friend of mine who but I was talking to her about some awful stuff happening in my family's lives right now. And I was like, the old me, the pre-kid me, would have done some shit by now. And she was like, and I would have been there with you. And she's not wrong. She would have been there with me. And both of us are kind of, so we have similar personalities in a lot of ways. So she was my also hyper-aggressive counterpart back in the day. All of our other friends, much calmer people. But yeah, so... she was kind of involved with some of this stuff, so it's personal. Yeah. But yeah, we were talking about that, and I was like, it's funny because people who know me now have no idea what the people in say high school and in my 20s knew of me. I'm a totally different person now, and yet still kind of aggressive, but way less, you guys. It's a lot of work on that,
and you think twice before acting on it.
Yes, and I did not before I took care of shit. But that's the problem is the other day I was thinking, which me did I like better? And I'd say it's at least somewhere in between because I like that I can calmly think through something, but at the same time that tends to be very punishing for me emotionally and physically. And it bothers me now that I'm not willing to do what I used to be willing to do and take care of shit. So I kind of want some of that back. But from the sound of it, as I get older, it's going to increasingly come back. The no bullshit.
I also,
I wasn't attacking people ever who didn't deserve it. I just was a person who didn't take the crap that people wanted to dole out.
Right. And I think I hope, as we get older, we learn new ways to deal with people that isn't, you don't take any, don't get me wrong, it's not taking any bullshit, but it's also not as reactionary. It's not a blow up reaction. It's more of a
it's a no out. Nonsense.
Yes.
Though.
Yes.
It's formal. Yes. So I'm looking forward to getting that point, but I think I'm already kind of starting that because then I reached the point where I was like, that's it. I've taken too much shit since I calmed down.
Oh, did I tell you? I watched in one night, sometime around the 4th of July, I watched 2 superhero movies.
What?
New to me superhero movies. Venom, There Will Be
Okay.
Carnage.
Yeah.
Is that the name of it? It was all right.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's kind of, I'm like, it's funny.
Yeah. The only thing that made me mad, what the hell else did I watch that he was in? Was it Woody Harrelson was a redhead?
Huh? I don't remember. I watched
Isn't that the one where he's in jail? Yes, and he bites him.
Yeah.
And he's wearing a wig.
Uh-huh.
And he's a redhead. And I'm like, I just watched him. I'm trying to remember in what. And I went,
The Man from Toronto?
Yes, The Man from Toronto. Mm-hmm. Which I loved him in that one.
It's so good. But the best scene we can't give because it needs to be witnessed.
But the second one I watched was the most recent Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
Which was interesting.
The one with all 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was interesting for me to watch because he is the only Spider-Man I know.
Oh, shit.
I never had any interest in any of the other ones.
Oh. Now I saw them all when they came out.
I just was like,
if there is an action movie, I will see it.
I just went, Spider-Man, But I thought the way they blended everybody in.
And if you've seen them, they blended them very well. So, if you had seen all the movies, they each maintained their personality, I feel like, from the ones they were in, because they're all different.
It was nice. I thought it was really well done. And I must have watched, before that, I watched the Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, the newest Doctor Strange?
The Doctor Strange, which I thought...
I did not really enjoy it.
I didn't either.
I was bored.
I was on my phone a lot.
Yeah.
And I went...
My son loves it, though, so he loves the Doctor Strange as the character. I think he really enjoys that character for whatever reason, so then I try. Yeah. I have to...
But that particular...
Don't sigh when you're bored, for example, and Ruin is fun. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
The new Thor is out. I can't wait to see that.
I do want to see that one.
Because there's already people say, it's too much, too focused on the comedy, and I'm like, good. Because if every Marvel movie is the same...
Yeah, if every Marvel movie is Doctor Strange.
Right. So one of them, they've decided to go goofy with Thor, so...
Yeah.
So don't watch it if you don't like it.
Did see the new Jurassic Park. Went to the theater.
See, we just haven't had...
We went to the Roadhouse Theater.
Yeah, it's where we wanted to go.
Let me tell you, their salt and vinegar popcorn is on point.
Yeah, I'd have to try it. I've had the buttered and that's it.
It's a really good balance. And the movie there were a couple of points where I went, but no, just let it go. Let all thoughts of reality go.
Yeah, we wanted to see that and Maverick in the theater, so we're going to try and see one of those this week at least. It's complicated when the spouse is gone every other week.
Yes.
To Kevin trying to get the trees taken care of. But we did go bowling the other night, which was nice. And we've been playing Mario stuff on the back porch with the kids. It's nice when you have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old and they still want to do things with you.
Yes. I can't remember the last time I went bowling.
It's funny because I actually bowled pretty well. But so I've broken both the middle finger and the ring finger on my right hand. And I'm right hand dominant. So those are the two that go into the bowling ball. Right.
Oh.
And so I've never gone to the doctor for a broken bone. We'll just say that. Or a dislocated bone. I had a dislocated rib for like a month, 5 weeks, something like that, before I was trying everything. I was slamming my rib into stuff trying to get it in. And then one day I felt something shift in the shower and I got out and I think I used like the arm of a sofa or something. I popped that bitch back in. But when I'm really tense and my back is a mess, that rib starts to pull. Oh. You know? Mm-hmm. But anyway, I've never been to the doctor for any of it. So that's a way of telling you that nothing heals right. I'm like, they're just going to set it and they're going to tape it to something. Someone's going to do that. Whatever. I have popsicles. I've broken a lot of toes. But anyway, so about halfway through that first game, those fingers start swelling, right? And they look like they're not crooked or anything. No. You can't tell that I badly put them together. But yeah, they just start swelling. And then the ball just keeps going further to the right, and then I'm trying to correct because somehow that's where it pulls when I'm doing it. And then by the time I leave, the pain is radiated up my elbow. But I don't know why. Is it just because I'm like, you're healed, get over it. But so every time, so then the second game, because we always do like a second game. First game I do okay, even though I start kind of getting worse, but I'm pushing it through. And the second time, you just tell that I'm like, ugh. I was going to throw the ball, whatever. You got to chuck it halfway down the thing. You'll start granny bowling or something like that.
Sit it on the end and give it a nudge with your foot.
Yes. It was quite fun.
Cool.
So, yeah. And it was probably the first time, because it's been a while since we went bowling, that a girl child didn't have to use they have the little things. It's like a metal stand, and you can put the ball at the top, and it rolls down. You just aim it with like this ramp. It's the first time she actually bowled. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever... I think I did take them bowling when they were little, but we've never bowled. I don't enjoy bowling.
See, the bowling alley we like near you is one that's less busy than other places. So
the one right there?
Peak Bowling. It's hidden back behind, is it the KFC or something like that?
Yes.
And so that's the one I like because it's smaller and we can go there and not have, like Harmony Bowl is the big one everybody goes to in North Academy. And that one is packed every time.
I'm went blank trying to think. I know I've taken the girls bowling, but I've never, I just don't enjoy it. So I'm not mad that it exists, but I don't want to do it. So
I get into I need to do better and I need to do better each time. And how do I figure out how to get the strikes and all this? It's funny though, with a 10-pound ball, how if you roll it super slow down the thing as girl child, you can still knock it. It'll just boop into that front pin or whatever if it's aimed right, and just slowly. It's really like slow dominoes. You just watch it, like, well, this one falls down and knocks this one down, and it just goes. And then she has like vampire teeth, right? The one on either side, the full split or whatever it is. But I don't like. Boy child has such force behind it because he's so strong, but it'll sometimes just go straight through and leave the pins on the side because nothing fell over. And it's so weird to see that.
7-10 split?
Yeah, I
think those are.
And I was like, I bet if you did a curve. Because I remember we used to go, because Harmony Bowl would be open until like maybe 2 a.m. or something.
Wow.
So sometimes we get done at the theater that I managed. And one of my friends who worked for me, I mean, we became friends working together.
Right.
We would go... call his brother, and we'd go to Harmony Bowl and bowl until late, and then like go to Village Inn and get food and stuff because we were getting off at like, if we got off as early as midnight, which wasn't all the time, let me tell you, when you're playing the movie Wyatt Earp and it's 200 hours long, you do not get out of the theater at midnight. But when we could, we would go do that. So that's why, and like, because most things would be closed. I played a lot of pool as a teenager though.
After I moved here, but before we had kids, some friends of ours used to be involved with, it's not Big Brothers, Big Sisters. It's something for kids, though. Can't remember what the name of the organization is. They used to do a bowl-a-thon every year. So they were like, you want to go bowling with us? I was like, not particularly.
Not really.
And Richard said, I'll be drinking Bloody Marys and I will buy them for you. I said, where are my shoes? Let me get my hat.
Yeah, I had a beer while we were there, which is nice. Got the kids and the husband sodas. And
So apparently if you liquor me up, I enjoy bowling.
I think for me, I find that less frustrating and challenging than, for whatever reason, having direct contact on that ball for me is preferable to a pool cue being an extension of what you're doing to the ball, or mini golf, which is also an extension. And I've noticed that, and I always hated it. We'd go like for a while with Jeff's brother, for example, for a little bit when he was in town. We'd go play pool, and then he'd like try to give me tips. My husband knows better. See? So the more you try and give me tips to get better, the less I'm going to give a shit about what I'm doing.
Yep.
And since we were often going with guys, the guys always want to give you fucking tips. And I'm like, first of all, I'm trying to relax. I'm not trying to win money from you or anything. Right. And then, then I'd just be like, okay. And then I'd close my eyes and do it or whatever. Because then I was pissed the fuck off. And then they would ruin the whole thing for me. So I have this like mental connection with that. Like, quit trying to tell me how to play. First of all, I haven't seen you run at any.
Right.
Like, oh, are you in tournaments? No, then just the fuck up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it was always, and then just mini golf. I don't know. I should like it more. We go do it sometimes, though.
I haven't played that in a few years, but I've enjoyed mini golf. I'm like, yeah,
I can get a hole in one every little once in a while.
But I just like to play to have fun because I'm like, look at this. I'm never going to be able to get my ball through the windmill.
Right.
And then you don't care and it goes right through.
And then it goes in and you're like, what?
Yep.
Yeah. So I do. I find those more relaxing, or bowling more relaxing than those. So it's probably in the order bowling, mini golf, pool, billiards.
Yes.
But we've taken the kids and played billiards with them at the Penny Arcade in Manitou.
I didn't
two
know
pool
that.
tables.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
I haven't been to the arcade in a long time. I need to take a day and go to Manitou and just walk around and see stuff. Joe's going to have some days off. Maybe I'll say, let's go to Manitou.
Might as well. Why not?
Right?
I tend to avoid it in tourist season, but
I'm thinking if we go on a weekday, we go early. Yeah, I'll see what he says. Honey, guess what? And he'll be like, oh, what?
But I wanted to be off.
But I just wanted to lay on the couch. I said, you can lay on the couch, but not in my new lazy boy. That is my reading chair.
Mine.
It is so very comfortable. It fits me perfectly.
Yeah.
I sat in it for like 2 hours reading one day. And when I got up, there was no, oh my God, everything hurts, or some part of me is asleep, or.
Yeah, we have 2 big easy chairs, whatever brand. They're huge. Like double big, and they're soft material instead of like leathery. And Jeff got them at like a firehouse sale where they were selling off there because, well, yeah, I won't talk my shit about firefighters and how much leisure time they have because people are so big on them being their heroes right now. So we'll just go right past that. But they got some good easy chairs and they're really clean and comfortable. So we have those easy chairs now.
Ooh,
they're nice. I'm like, now we need 2 more, and then we'll have full 4-seat theater downstairs. Eventually, we're going to do like a ramp, or not a ramp, but a second tier, so then we can have the seats stacked, so that it is. We really want those. They sell them like these neat home movie theater ones, but that takes some cash that I'm not willing to put out right now. Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. If you're thinking of starting a podcast or even just starting to research it, Buzzsprout is your go-to source for information and hosting. They have tons of videos and write-ups on everything you need to know about recording and distributing a podcast, and they even provide easy ways to get analytics on how your podcast is doing. We use Buzzsprout for our podcast hosting, and through them, we've been able to connect with tons of resources and distributors. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and help support our show. A win-win. Not only do they help you get started, but they also do small things to encourage you, such as awarding you badges as you hit various milestones. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. All right, so you're going to start this time.
All right, so because I've touched on this the last 2-3 episodes, so we have talked about, it's come up, the Satanic Panic. So I wanted to dive in a little deeper. Because some people who listen to us were not alive in the 80s. Others were there and don't remember it for a variety of reasons. Or they were children, So buckle up. And we're going to talk about the Satanic Panic. First, I'm going to give you the Wikipedia definition of a moral panic. Because part of the definition of Satanic Panic...
Would that be the Salem witch trials?
So a moral panic is a widespread feeling of fear, often an irrational one, that some evil person or thing threatens the values, interests, or well-being of a community or society. It is the process of arousing social concern over an issue, usually perpetrated by moral entrepreneurs and the mass media, and exacerbated by politicians and lawmakers.
Absolutely.
So, that's a moral panic. So examples of this would be the Red Scare communism.
Yes.
The fear of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, I thought that was part of Satanic Panic.
It is, but HIV/AIDS is also considered is also considered a moral panic. So I told you that to tell you this. The Satanic Panic is defined as a moral panic made up of more than 12,000 unsubstantiated reports of satanic ritual abuse. It started in the U.S. in the 80s, spread throughout the world in the 90s, and apparently remains active today. Credit for igniting this particular fire goes to the 1980 publication of a book called Michelle Remembers by Michelle Smith and Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Pazder. And I know I referenced them, now I want to say it's 2 weeks ago. That it all started with the publication of this book. So Pazder was born in 1936, and he was a Canadian doctor who initially specialized in tropical medicine, and he practiced medicine in Nigeria from 1962 to 64. When he returned to Canada, he completed his psychiatric training in 1968. He was a devout Catholic. He helped open a day home for people in need. He was a very giving person. So Pazder and his first wife had 4 children together, and in 1979, after his request for an annulment was denied, he divorced his wife. He later married his former patient and co-author, Michelle Smith. So Pazder started treating Smith in 1973 for depression. Now, it was interesting because you had to poke around a while to get to this point, to get to this factoid. She went to see him for depression. And they went through the whole course of treatment, for lack of a better term, and they were winding down. They were coming to the natural end of their therapy. She was feeling better. They discussed her unoutstanding childhood, the whole 9 yards. So then in 1976, she comes back because she had been triggered by having a miscarriage. And she was depressed again, and now she's having nightmares. She reportedly told him she felt like she had something important to tell him, but couldn't remember what. Shortly thereafter, she reportedly had a session with him where she screamed without stopping for 25 minutes, then began to speak in the voice of a 5-year-old. So I was like, now I understand later why they said a 5-year-old, but initially that, to me, that comes off as oddly specific.
Oh, yeah.
But it comes back later as why they said it was a 5-year-old. So Pazder claimed that he used hypnosis to recover memories of satanic ritual abuse from the mid-1950s starting when Smith was a 5-year-old. Thus, that's why that's what the voice was. I'm like, if you screamed for 25 minutes, who the hell knows what your voice would sound like?
Yeah. Also, I would not be able to stay in the room with a person screaming for 20
I wouldn't either.
minutes.
I would hit them with a book or something. I mean, no, I don't think I could either. Anyway, supposed to be, okay, so this abuse was supposed to be perpetrated by her mother and others who belonged to a satanic cult. So together, Smith and Pazder recorded over 600 hours of testimony in 14 months. So that's over 40 hours a month of recording. So that's over an hour a day. And I'm assuming it wasn't a daily thing. It was in spurts. Pazder, believing he was on the verge of discovering a huge cover-up, like a nationwide, if not worldwide cover-up, spent hours with Smith. He even later the two of them visited the Vatican to alert the church to the dangers faced by children worldwide. So Pazder and Smith went on to write Michelle Remembers. Catch this. You'll understand this. And I'll explain it, but they were given $100,000 advance for the hardback rights.
Wow.
And $242,000 for the paperback rights. This is in 1980.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that is a shit ton of money.
Now they're like, here is $50. No, it's
yeah,
not quite,
I mean,
but
you just don't see advances like that now.
Advances are in the single-digit thousands, perhaps.
Yes.
A lot of the time.
So I converted it because I wanted to know. That would be like getting $350,000 for the hardback and $847,000 for the paperback rights in today's money.
So when you could actually live off of being an author.
Yes. The book details the therapy sessions where the memories were recovered and allege that the Church of Satan is a worldwide organization predating the Christian church. I don't understand how you can have Satan before you have God, but yeah, that look on your face is, yeah. I went, but anyway.
But there is no Satan without God, you
right?
guys.
It's, yeah. So after publication, Pazder became the expert, the go-to guy on satanic ritual abuse. And I don't know why the U.S. at this point in time was so ripe for this. People who know better just fucking accepted this as gospel. Hook, line, and sinker. News people.
I mean, it's happening now with things. So
yes.
So was the environment the same? Similar?
I don't know.
Yeah.
In 1984, Pazder consulted on the McMartin preschool trial, which that lasted 7 years. There were no convictions, and the charges were all dropped. There was also a spate of like preschool sexual abuse allegations, which were later all proven false.
Not true? Because I thought a couple happened.
No, I'm not going to... Yeah, a couple may have, but there were these two that I'm mentioning.
Uh-huh.
One of the other ones, there was like one guy who actually had done something, but they're indicting dozens of people.
Then I do recall that like a bunch of innocent.
Yes.
Yeah.
He appeared on ABC's 2020. He helped produce training seminars for law enforcement agencies, teaching them how to recognize the signs.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's teaching them how to recognize the signs of something that we need to remember is not actually happening.
Right.
He also made a claim that this worldwide secret organization could remain a secret. Oh my God, this man was bonkers. Because they didn't leave their victims just lying about. So corpses of victims, he alleged, were cremated so their ashes could be consumed or used for further rituals.
Okay, then.
That's a lot of cremation. And home cremation is not as easy as you might think.
Well, no. There's a certain temperature that must be reached.
Exactly. So in 1989, Michelle, his patient, who later became his wife, appeared on Oprah along with Laurel Rose Wilson, author of the memoir Satan's Underground, and another supposed victim/survivor. Oprah presented this straight as fact. Mm-hmm. These books are fact, and she interviewed them about their experiences. So I'm going to sidebar here and talk about Laurel Rose Wilson. She was a deeply disturbed, mentally ill woman. She was born in 1941, so I think she was just slightly older than Michelle Smith. She was a gifted musician who often played several instruments, and she usually belonged to evangelical churches where she would be part of the music program. She wrote Satan's Underground, detailing her years of abuse at the hands of a satanic cult. She claimed she was used as a baby breeder to provide babies for sacrifice. She claimed to have information about the Kern County child abuse cases. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But was dismissed as being unreliable. They're like, there are no facts here. This is just made up.
Was it religious psychosis in the Albert Fish story I did?
Oh,
sounds like that.
No. Psychosis, yes. Religious, I don't think so. She also inserted herself into the McMartin trial that I talked about earlier, the McMartin preschool trial, claiming she had witnessed the abuse, which she hadn't, and also claiming a lesbian relationship with one of the defendants. Also not true. It turns out she'd been making false claims of abuse for years, along with threatening suicide. After her publisher withdrew her books, she changed her name and posed as a concentration camp survivor, taking thousands of dollars meant for Holocaust survivors.
Girl.
Yeah, how fucking low can you go? She died in 2002 at the age of 60.
Bye.
Bye. No. Not tearing up here.
No.
Not pausing to dab at my eyes. So, neither book had even a toenail in fact, based in fact. Nothing. Nothing in these books was factual. The method that Pazder used to extract these repressed memories has long been discredited. There are no sources cited in the book. So you're like, well, what do you mean sources?
I mean, for $1 million, I'll write that I was the survivor of a satanic cult.
Right.
I won't do the rest, but I will.
So there are no records. There are no photos. There are no police investigations. No evidence presented whatsoever, except in the Pazder case, memories retrieved via hypnosis. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily even hypnosis. It's that she would go into this trance state and start talking like a 5-year-old girl. Here's another fact. Yeah, there are facts. They don't know what they are, but when Anton LaVey, I don't know if you know that name, founded the Church of Satan, but he founded the church after this alleged abuse happened. So he threatened to sue for libel. So Pazder dropped the claim and stopped referring to the Church of Satan.
Ha!
In October of 1980, a Canadian news magazine published an article where Smith's father, Jack Proby, was interviewed. Her mother had passed away in 1964. Proby was her whole family was wrecked by this. He said it took him 4 months to read her book, and he cried the entire time he was reading it because he couldn't believe someone would do this to their mother. Because he's like, no, this never happened. He maintained he could refute all of the false allegations. He pointed out the book never mentioned her 2 sisters. And why would you just engage with one sister? One was older, one was younger. Well, it doesn't make any sense. He also pointed out the fact that these 2 devout Catholics divorced their spouses to marry each other.
Right. If you're devout, divorce isn't usually part of that.
Yeah. In fact, they did remain married to each other until Pazder died of a heart attack in 2004 at the age of 67.
Well, and this was his client. This was his, that adds a measure of...
And there is speculation that they were both unhappy in their marriages, and having this project to work on gave them excuse to spend time alone together. In the years since, other researchers have combed through newspapers because at one point she talks about a car crash that was staged to hide a body, to hide a murder, and they're unable to verify a car wreck ever occurred. People have pored over the school records. There are no unexplained absences, no reports of injury, no reports of abuse. They've been unable to locate any mention of missing persons, adults or children, that she claims she saw ritually sacrificed.
Right.
If you're killing people, they have to come from somewhere.
Yes, there has to be a missing person associated with that.
Exactly. So another fact, Pazder in Smith's book reports on a claim by a man named Len Olson. So he appeared on a Canadian TV show with evangelist David Maintz, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and said that he and his wife narrowly escaped being sacrificed in a satanic ritual by Mark Federuck, who was also known as Lion Serpent Son. So that's all Pazder includes. He forgot to mention that Son sued for defamation and won after the court learned Olson had been delusional from drug use. But, why
just leave that part out?
Yeah. So I mentioned the McMartin preschool trial a little bit earlier. Pazder was also tangentially involved in the Kern County child abuse cases in California. This one started when a step-grandmother, and I'm naming her Marianne Barber, coached her granddaughters to say they'd been ritualistically abused by their parents. This incident spread to another family and resulted in the 4 parents being convicted in 1984 and sentenced to a combined total of over 1,000 years.
It's really easy to coach kids.
Oh, yeah.
No problem.
The conviction was overturned and the parents released in 1996. So that's 12 years. They got to live in prison with the knowledge that there were people out there who thought they had been not just abusing their children, but satanically, ritualistically abusing their children. And that accusation just fueled others. So the connection is, prior to any of these allegations coming out, several Kern County social workers had attended a seminar based on Michelle Remembers, citing satanic ritual abuse as the major element of child sexual abuse. I'm not throwing shade on the social workers. They were trying to educate themselves on recognizing the signs of child abuse. And whoever was presenting this, probably for continuing education credits, was basing everything on a book with not a single citation of fact in it.
Yeah.
So if you think, now there are probably going to be people listening to this and going, well, it's over. It's not. You might think the repercussions from the hysteria have faded, but I don't think they have. If you've ever heard anyone refer to QAnon,
Mm-hmm.
So I had to look this up because I'm like, what? The anonymous Q maintains that Trump is working to expose and destroy a global satanic pedophilic sex ring supposedly supported by the Democratic Party and the deep state inside of our government.
Yeah. Pizza places and...
I'm just shaking my head. So and there are 8 million bazillion pop culture references. One that we were talking about earlier. If you look at season 4 of Stranger Things, the entire town has turned on and is trying to hunt down and destroy the Hellfire Club, which is in fact a group of teenagers who play Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't watch Stranger Things, I'll just say one of the members was present when the first victim is killed, but had nothing to do with it. Yeah. That game, Dungeons and Dragons, because it got its own special brand of hysteria. In 1979, there was a troubled young man. He was 16 years old. His name was James Dallas Egbert III. He went missing, and his parents hired an investigator to search for him. This investigator learned that he'd been a D&D player, and he heard rumors that there had been live action games in some underground steam tunnels. So he speculated that the boy got lost down there, and that just got picked up as fact. He did not. Sadly, that point he was found. He had attempted to commit suicide before, and he did in fact take his own life the following year. Rona Jaffe, do you remember her? No. She published a book called Mazes and Monsters, which was later turned into a TV movie, loosely based on the Egbert story, which just further fanned the flames. Yes. That it was introducing people to satanic ideas and encouraging them to... And I'm like, have any of you people ever looked at it? At D&D? At Dungeons and Dragons?
But speculative things, fantasy things, are often like the number of kids who can't... God, and Pokemon. But anyway, the Harry Potter books are a big example of ones that churches turned on because magic isn't real, and therefore, and I'm like, but you believe in magic. Like, literally, your religion is based on magical things. What do you call
transubstantiation? If turning the wine into the blood.
Virgin births and everything else in there, it's... Yeah. So I'm like, so you believe in it as long as it's related to the Bible, but then it can't happen. But you're saying that all this stuff happened in real life, so... Why can't the rest of it? So yeah, fantasy is a huge it's a target of that I don't understand. It's one of those things where I'm like, but this is the very thing that you base your life on.
I do get it.
But you've drawn the line here.
Yes. So I just want to suggest to people that every once in a while they question what they believe and why.
Honestly, the Church of Satan at this point is the most woke church. And tends to align with my politics.
Yeah.
And isn't it all what people think it is? But that's another thing. Like, they still think that the Satanic Church and all this stuff is what they thought of in the 80s. Like, I see a lot of that mentality. And they're doing, like, political things and that are positive for people. And
when this started, when they started saying it's the Church of Satan, there wasn't one.
Right. And then some smart ass come along. And he was like, all right, now there is. And I will see you.
Yeah. So I'm like, just look at I will always say this. Look at your sources. If somebody is telling you something, okay, so if Shannon tells me something that I find incredible, of course I am inclined to believe her because she is my dear friend. However, That doesn't mean I'm not. I had a very good friend tell me that I'm going to try to keep this very neutral, that they had unfriended a mutual friend and told me why. And I thought, well, that's awful. I should just go and friend that person. And I trust this person. But I went and looked first, and then I went, oh, they were right. And I did unfriend that person, but I looked it up myself first.
Right.
Just how...
Because, there's a big thing in, like, at least in the horror writing community, but a lot in the speculative, and it's, this person is posting these awful things, here's their name, here's screenshots. And so...
Yes.
And it'll send a bunch of people after one person, and so I always check that first, and then I'll preemptively block if I go and look and go, oh, shit, they're right. So that, because if you get friend requests, I get friend requests all the time, and I go through them, like, once every 3 months, maybe. But... it's so easy to friend somebody who hasn't recently said the terrible things.
Yes.
So if I preemptively block, I will not accidentally add this person who said these awful things that are buried it's not that I'm going to look at their last 2 years of posts. That's crazy.
No.
So, and if their page isn't visible at all, if there's nothing visible on the page, they're not getting friended either. But yes, there are witch hunts that happen actively still these days on all sides.
Yes, and also if you hear, well, did you know, I'm going to pick a public figure out of my hat. Did you hear Jerry Seinfeld said, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, there's a movement right now to cancel Chris Pratt for some stuff that I won't go into. So, but you can actively see when the hunt is going, but they didn't pick the right thing to get enough people in their corner. It's kind of a crazy thing to observe.
Yes. I go all the time and look at they said it in an interview with this magazine. So I will go read the whole article.
Right. Because taking a quote out of context can do a lot of damage.
And both sides do that. And I wish they would knock it the fuck off.
Yeah.
You're not serving anybody.
No.
So what are you going to talk about this week?
I'm doing something tame for me.
Gasp.
I know. It's the monster with 21 faces, which sounds way less tame than it is. It's also known as the Glico Morinaga kidnappings. So I'm just going to tell y'all now, this is happening in Japan, and I do not pretend to know Japanese or know how to pronounce words. So apologies in advance. At about 9 p.m. on the evening of March 18th, 1984, the Nishinomiya, Japan home of a 70-year-old woman was invaded by two men wearing white masks and wielding guns. One of them cut the phone cord loose, because there were phone cords then, and used it to tie her up. Then they demanded a key from her. This woman was the mother of 42-year-old Katsuhisa Izaki, the president of the food company Izaki Glico, often just called Glico, and what I'm going to call it for the rest of this for ease. For those unfamiliar with the company name, they make Pocky, which is a big candy thing. We all know now.
Pocky.
And something called Pretz, which is also popular in the U.S., though I'm not familiar with that one. Either. And of course, those have made it. They're at King Soopers. This is a Japanese product. It is now made at King Soopers in America, but it was not at this time. Yeah, it was just Japanese.
It used to be you had to go to
Asian
grocery store to get it, and now you could not only can you get it at King Super, you can find it at Big Lots.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah, they've done well. I will say. Well, I'll say it at the end if I remember. I was looking at recent interviews, but his grandfather was actually the founder of the company, so that's who this guy is. So Katsuhisa Izaki owned the property where his mother lived, and his house was next door to hers on that property. So he owned this big property, and then they had a house for her, a house for him. I was kind of confused. Why did they need that key that they could break into the house next door? So what I couldn't find was, did she habitually leave her door unlocked, but the main house was not unlocked? Because otherwise, isn't it easier to just break into the house you're trying to break into instead of getting that key? But he also had a security system and stuff like that in the big house. So they wanted that key to his house. And they did procure that. They left her alive, bound and gagged, and they proceeded over to the house next door. Izaki had headed off to a bath, wanting to relax after a rough day at work. Two of his kids, at ages 11 and 4, were already in bed, but his wife and 7-year-old daughter were in the living room when the two men entered the house. The men once more cut telephone cords, used them to bind the two females. Izaki's wife offered them money, but one man said, money is irrelevant. So they tied him up and bound them. And it was apparently quite quiet because Izaki did not hear any of it. Leaving them tied and gagged, the men went to the bathroom and burst in on Izaki. He tried to fight, but they told him they'd harm his family if he didn't come with them peacefully, so he complied. Without allowing him to get dressed, they removed a wet, naked Izaki from the house and into a running car outside, taking him to a riverside warehouse about half an hour away in Ibaraki, Osaka. I mapped it to find out that it was 30 minutes, so it probably was a shorter time then because it's smaller.
Right.
City was smaller than a star. Okay. A random man was discovered in a nearby phone booth within a few hours. They asked for 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold bullion. In American dollars, the total value of this was about $6 million, a little less. Bullion wasn't easy to get, so it was a big ask. It wasn't like they could run out and get the bullion. Police were confounded also because Glico wasn't that big a company. It was doing well. It wasn't just like a little small corner store or anything, but they weren't a massive corporation either. Like they hadn't grown that big yet. While police were still trying to figure out the who and the why, Izaki loosed himself from his bindings, removed the bag they'd kept over his head for the past 3 days, kicked down a door, and fled, finding his way to safety. Now they had get him in clothing once they got him there, but he did not have shoes, so he was barefoot. They had fed him juice and crackers during his captivity, but pretty much just kept that bag over his head.
They fed him Pocky.
They should have. There's some stuff with that later. But because of the bag on his head, he was able to lead police to the warehouse he'd escaped, but he couldn't describe his attackers, nor could he give them any further information about their motives. They didn't talk to him.
Okay.
Not to be deterred, the people who had kidnapped him set several cars on fire in the Glico parking lot on April 10th. On April 16th, a container of hydrochloric acid turned up inside the company building, along with a letter demanding money or they would continue to harass the company. At some point during all this, another fire was set somewhere on the property as well. The mysterious assailants also sent a letter to police, something they would do a lot more of. In the end, there were at least like 100 letters.
Oh my God.
In it, they said, quote, "To the stupid police, are you idiots?" And bear in mind, all these I'm reading have been translated.
Okay.
So it's going to sound stilted. I doubt it sounded that stilted in the original. Okay. "Are you idiots? There's so many of you. What on earth are you doing? If you were pros, you would catch us. Because you guys have such a high handicap, we're going to give you some hints." End quote. They told police the car they'd kidnapped Izaki in was gray, and that they'd bought his juice and crackers at a well-known store called, and I don't know how to pronounce this one at all, Daei or something, Daei. They ended the letter with, "Shall I kidnap the head director of the prefectural police?" They implied that the police not solving the problem meant they were stealing from the taxpayers. Wow. A lot of stuff. The note was signed Kaijin Nijuichi Minso, translating to the monster with 21 faces. Pretty much. It's been translated a few ways, like the phantom with 21 faces.
Okay.
It was thought this was inspired by The Fiend with 20 Faces by Edogawa Rampo, which was like, I think they said it was a series for kids or something in the 20s, late 20s.
Oh, wow.
Many letters followed, with some still being sent to Glico asking for cash and some being sent to police to taunt them. Other letters went directly to the press. They then sent letters stating they'd placed some Glico candy products with potassium cyanide on shelves. Glico had to pull all their products, losing them about $21 million.
Damn.
The information got out, and the company suffered lost sales and plummeting stock prices, resulting in the loss of about $130 million more.
Wow.
These losses led to major layoffs, and none of the recalled products were found to have been poisoned, meaning it had been an idle threat that time. There were more letters, more threats, and at least one more fire on Glico property.
Oh my God.
They also continued sending clues to their actions and letters to the police. But, useless clues, like the car was gray. Okay, well, that narrows it down.
Yeah.
Constantly calling them stupid and dumb and showing them that they were watching. For example, they knew when plainclothes police went to a truck stop to await a call for ransom they'd arranged instead of a Glico employee like it was supposed to be. They said, quote, "You thought you could fool us dressed up in your nice businessmen's blue suits, acting like salarymen. But those shifty eyes gave you away," end quote. They gave the brand of their typewriter, how they entered the factory, which was through the front gate, and where they'd gotten the container they'd left in the building containing hydrochloric acid, saying it was trash they'd found on the street. It was a plastic container. On June 26, a letter was received by the press. It stated, "The president of Glico has already gone around with his head hanging down long enough. We would like to forgive him. They said they were going to Europe to escape the muggy Japanese weather." There's a whole letter about it. I decided not to read the whole thing. And that they were bored with this now. In their usual sarcastic tone, they said, "Let's bring Pocky, the traveler's friend. Delicious Glico products. We're eating them too." Exclamation point. But they hadn't gone to Europe. They'd merely turned their attention to other food companies, like Morinaga, a candy company, House Foods Corporation, famous for curry and tofu, but also noodles, sodas, things like that, and Marudai, a meat product company. It's like Marudai ham is how they were referring to it, but they also made like sausage and stuff. They asked Marudai for 50 million yen to leave them alone. These other companies were aware of the damage because the Glico thing had been very public, and having this turned on them was alarming. Police went undercover to deliver the money for Marudai on June 28th. Following their instructions, an officer got on a train that would take him from Osaka to Kyoto. He was told to watch for a white flag and to throw the bag of money out the window when he saw it. However, no white flag ever appeared. Instead, a suspicious man was sighted by the officer in his train car watching him. This man was described as brawny, short-haired, and wearing glasses. The officer said he had eyes like those of a fox. The man rode all the way to Kyoto near the officer, and when the officer got off and boarded a train to return to Osaka, Kitsune Mei no Otoko, or the fox-eyed man as he came to be called, did the same. When they got back to Osaka, the officer radioed for a tail on the man, but the tail lost him. So they did see him, but he got away. He ditched his vehicle during the chase, which turned out to be stolen and to have a police scanner inside it, so they could hear that it was a police officer on the train. Morinaga was based in Tokyo, but the dialect in the communication showed that those writing the letters were from Osaka, where Glico was located. One envelope came to the company with about 30 grams of sodium cyanide inside it, once more containing a letter demanding money equaling about 400,000. So they were saying, we have what we threatened to use. So here it is. In October, the group escalated. A letter was sent out to the press that said to moms of the nation, "In autumn, when appetites are strong, sweets are really delicious." They sound like marketers to me.
They do.
"When you think sweets, no matter what you say, it's Morinaga. We've added some special flavor. The flavor of potassium cyanide is a little bitter. It won't cause tooth decay, so buy the sweets for your kids. We've attached a notice on these bitter sweets that they contain poison. We've put 20 boxes in stores from Hakata to Tokyo." So police, they spread out, right? They fanned out and they searched all of the stores, finding choco balls and angel pies with labels on them saying, "Danger, contains poison. You'll die if you eat this. Signed, the monster with 21 faces." These labels were typewritten just like the letters. Articles varied between 21 and more than a dozen boxes found, but all were consistent in saying that no one ended up poisoned because they were clearly labeled.
Okay.
Yeah. A few of the boxes did contain enough cyanide to cause death. Others labeled had no poison. In reviewing surveillance video, so it tells me they had a limited amount, right? In reviewing surveillance video in one of the shops, a video of a man turned up from October 7th. He was not an employee, but he was placing boxes on the shelves that appeared to be the adulterated candy boxes. He resembled the description of the fox-eyed man, though they referred to him as Bideo no Otoko, video man or videotape man. He wore glasses and a hat for the baseball team, the Yomiuri Giants.
Okay.
All I know about baseball there is that Tom Selleck went and it was Tom Selleck taught them baseball. They love it. An audio recording was also received, with a woman and child demanding payment. The police set up a line for people to call in and listen to the recording so they could hopefully identify the voices. No one was able to. But between this and the release of the videotape man photo and a police sketch based off it, more than 28,000 tips were called in. In November,
Angry parents.
Yeah. House Food Corporation received a poisoned batch of curry directly to them, because that's what they were known for, was their curry, right, along with a note telling them they'd be the next Glico or Morinaga if they didn't pay 100 million yen, about 450,000 US. Desperate to avoid the financial hits the other companies had taken, they agreed to pay the ransom. I mean, it was effective, right? An employee took a company van to an area in Otsu in Shiga Prefecture, where a white cloth was supposed to be placed on a canister where the money was to be dropped. Police tailed the van, but when they arrived, the cloth was on the ground, which was supposed to be a signal that it was called off, and they did not leave the money. Police scoping out a rest stop nearby saw a man resembling the Fox-eyed man, but when they tried to pursue him, he once more eluded them. After this failure, it was discovered that a station wagon had been parked near the canister earlier in the day, but had fled when police approached them. The car was found nearby. As with the previous one, when they tailed the Fox-eyed man, this one had been stolen and a police scanner had been installed. They knew the police were coming, so they called it off. In January 1985, the monster went after a restaurant chain called Fijiya. They were told to throw money, or Fijiya, off a couple skyscrapers. I didn't find that they did so. There really wasn't much about that. Another letter to Morinaga followed, though they'd had a brief break with Fijiya and House Foods when they were being targeted instead. And then there were two more companies at this time, Meiji and Lotte, or Lotte, L-O-T-T-E. The letter once more stated there would be sodium cyanide in boxes of candy. And bear in mind, the timing is January. They're looking at Valentine's stocking. This time, there would be no warning labels. Once more, the monster with 21 faces caused the company to have to remove all their products from shelves and test them. No cyanide was found, but their sales plummeted and their stocks, just as Glico's had, with a loss of 60% to the company, which led to more layoffs. The Japanese government actually beseeched those who were able to purchase stocks to keep the company from going under, and people did, so they were able to continue. I found that interesting because here the government just gives a big payoff to all these big corporations that have fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And so we keep them in business.
Oh, yeah.
But in Japan, they were like, well, we can't do that, but we will beseech you for your help. And they did.
Yeah.
Different societies. In February 1985, more poison products were found. Luckily, they were still labeled. The press and the public turned on the police. They called for different people to be put in charge as the police had failed for over a year to stop these people. The police superintendent of Shiga Prefecture, Shoji Yamamoto, apologized to the public. He was removed as superintendent and reassigned. Shamed, the 59-year-old man poured kerosene over himself and lit himself on fire in his backyard on August 7th, 1984. He would be the sole fatality.
Oh my God, that's
of this campaign.
Horrible way to go.
Yeah. On August 12th, one final letter was received by the media. Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. We've got no friends or secret hiding place in Shiga. So his was the town where the canister, they were supposed to leave money in the canister. So that was really the only thing that affected them, which is what they meant by that. They were like, we don't have anything happening there. Why was he shamed? They said it's Yoshino or Shikata, which I'm assuming are other officers in the main places like Osaka, who should have died. What have they been doing for as long as 1 year and 5 months? Don't let bad guys like us get away with it. There are many more fools who want to copy us. No career Yamamoto died like a man, so we decided to give our condolences. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us, but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life, the monster with 21 faces. I don't think they ever intended anyone to die.
No.
They didn't beat, like the Izaki, when he was held captive, he wasn't harmed, he wasn't beat up. He had a couple scratches on his face from the initial scuffle, and that was all the harm that came to him. They labeled all the candy boxes, so they didn't really want somebody to eat them, but they wanted...
like they didn't have a lot of cyanide.
Right. So the guy killing himself, they really did shut down then. Nothing more. So I really think, oh shit, somebody died. Like they were never heard from again, though a series of copycats did try, just as they said they would, and fail, because they weren't as good at it, to follow in their footsteps. And Yamamoto's death had turned the public's ire back toward the harassing entity instead of the police. So the public was kind of mollified by that as well. Like,
oh, God.
Oh, shit. Well, we didn't mean for you to commit suicide. We just wanted you to solve it. Theories abounded as to why this group had spent over a year harassing food companies. These theories included the North Korean government trying to cause financial issues for Japan, kind of like we always expect, like Russia is doing it here or whatever. That was a problem for them. Individuals trying to manipulate the stock market so they could make money that way. So whenever the stocks would plummet, they'd be able to buy.
Right.
Financial gain, just straight up, we want the money, which they called a ransom the whole time, but I guess it's still a ransom because you're holding the company ransom, right? But that seemed to be disproven because every time they set up a ransom drop, it got called off. Now, was that because they had the scanners and knew the police were there? Did they? I don't know.
But
they didn't try very hard to get the money.
They had to know that the police would be there at the job.
Right. They always are going to.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. They're going to be there.
So I just don't know. A personal vendetta against Morinaga, who was that second big company they went after, because in the 50s, Morinaga had accidentally released a dry milk powder, basically, that accidentally contained arsenic. It had killed 138 infants and injured over 12,000. And so those people would have been in their 30s if infants who had
right.
Just because they didn't die didn't mean that 12,000 didn't have awful effects from having drunk arsenic. So they thought maybe it was revenge, but they were like, then why did they start on Glico? A political statement by extremists similar to something happening in Belgium at the same time, but that would seem like, because nothing political ever came from it. Or the Yakuza, which was an internal war referred to as the Yamaichi War at that time, and it lasted through 1989. The most likely theory involves an unhappy Glico employee or somebody who had worked for both Glico and Morinaga. Probably somebody who had been fired or something like that, because the attacks on Glico were more personal. They were able to get on the president's property, and the police did feel that they already knew the family's home and schedule and stuff like that. And they knew information, and if they knew to go into her house to get the key. And they got onto the work property to set the fires. They got inside the building to leave the acid.
Although, did they go into her house to get the key, or did they go in to frighten him? Look, not only can we come into your house
but we can get your mom.
But we can get your mom.
Could be, but they did use the key.
Well, yes. I mean, if you had the key, you would use it. But I'm like, yeah, they didn't need to.
I know, it was weird. So a single suspect was announced by the police, like publicly. They only ever said one person publicly. Though it would later be stated that they had looked at 125,000 persons of interest throughout the years following and during the crimes. That suspect was Manabu Miyazaki, who resembled the police sketch and video of the fox-eyed man so much that his own mother saw it on the news and thought it was him. He had been a whistleblower against Glico, accusing them of throwing industrial waste in bodies of water. In addition, he had a labor dispute with Glico from 1975 to 1976, but I couldn't find details on that dispute. His father was a boss in the Yakuza. However, he had alibis for important dates and times, though it was pointed out he could have orchestrated the things that happened those days while not being personally present, thus having the alibis. After publicly announcing him as a suspect, the police said he no longer was publicly. He wrote a best-selling book later about how being named the sole suspect in one of Japan's still most notorious crimes damaged his life. Best-selling. He made a lot of money off of it. Whatever the motive, and whoever it was, the statute of limitations has run out on each of their crimes, with the last closing out in 2000. So they're kind of been putting out like, does anybody want to come forward? Does anyone want to tell us stuff? And they think it was because of Yamamoto's death that nobody wants to own up. Because it was a murder, basically, almost in a way, right? Like, they caused this man's death, even inadvertently. Sources for this: Wikipedia, Unresolved, All That's Interesting, BuzzFeed, Unsolved Wiki, because it was a BuzzFeed Unsolved, and Historic Mysteries.
Wow.
Yeah. See, like, only one person died in that story. How often do I do one where only one person died?
And by his own hand.
He did. Self-immolation, as they referred to it.
Oh my God, that's just such a horrible...
It is. Yeah.
Way. And I can't think of anything. I'm sure I could, but that's just one of the worst.
Yeah.
If you're going to kill yourself.
And it's interesting because, of course, in Japan, that made everybody like, oh, shit. And they respected him for it because that is more of a respected thing than here.
Yes.
Right? Again, a lot of cultural differences. But, yeah, like, nobody ever... Usually somebody will come forward at some point and be like, haha, here's why we did this.
Or somebody will come forward, even
Weren't
if
we clever?
You know, I was dating this guy and he...
Yeah. But
I
absolutely nothing ever.
Wow.
And it's still one of their biggest, like, unsolved mysteries, because at the time this was happening where they were giving police such shit, it said their police had, like, a 99.1 solve rate on murders and stuff like that, compared to 79.1 in the U.S. at the same time. So they had a very high solve rate in Japan. and they could not solve this.
Wow.
So it did. It drove them crazy. They said like 1/5 of the police force was involved with this case at one point in all these areas that it covered.
Wow.
Because, I'm going to say around Noshi and Nemo, that first city where Izaki lived, Nishinomiya, was right next to like the Osaka right here. And then there's little cities in there. So
it mostly sounds like a prank.
Or prefectures. I don't know. It does, except they did those little things to show they were serious by putting the actual cyanide or whatever into a few candies, but then labeling it again so that they made sure people wouldn't eat it.
It's like either you label it. If you label it, are you serious? Right. It's confounding.
It's like a Batman villain.
My God, it is like a Batman villain.
So, yeah.
Except he didn't stop at the end and explain himself. Let me give you this 5-minute soliloquy on why I'm doing this.
Not even a little bit. So anyway, what I was saying earlier is I went to look because I wanted to find pictures of Izaki, for example. I went to the Glico website. And I found interviews when I was doing searches of him when he first brought his product to America, which wasn't that long ago. It was like, I think I saw one in 2016. And it's still Izaki.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at that point. So I don't know now because I went to their website and I found it harder to find. Their About Us was down when I was there, which was weird. So, but it was him in 2016 at least talking about, and here's what I found funny is I was looking at when I was scrolling through their products and stuff, there's the Pocky, there's the stuff we've seen. They have caramels and they call it healthy caramel, but it did not explain why it was healthy. And so I read an interview with him when they were bringing the products and they were like, well, what is the impetus? Like, why should we buy your products? Why are these good products to bring to America now, to our market or whatever? And he ended up mentioning, Meiji and Latte and Morinaga in that interview, which I found interesting. They're all still major companies there, right? And he was saying, but our products are healthy. So they're claiming that these candies and stuff, I mean, the Pocky's like this, like a candy thingy. It's like a very thin
cookie stick.
Yeah. And, but he said, because our products are healthy and we believe in keeping people healthy. And when I post the pictures, their logo is like a healthy running man, like in a marathon type the shorts and
I think
shirt.
I've seen it, but I mean, I know
probably,
I've seen it,
yeah. So that was interesting. And I'm like, so why doesn't anybody ever say, how are your candy products healthy?
Yeah, what makes these, because I would eat a healthy caramel.
Right? I know. I was like,
I eat enough of the unhealthy ones. So.
That's not here though, just the Pocky and the products and stuff. But yeah, so he's still going. They overcame it. And it sounds like all those companies, even Morinaga and Glico, took that huge financial hit.
Right.
That the other ones didn't.
But they've come back.
But they did come back. So.
That's one of those puzzling ones. Like the Great Maple Syrup heist.
Right.
They still don't know who did that.
And I feel like there's not that big a drive to catch. I mean, in this case, they were because they were afraid people were going to be poisoned eventually.
Yes, and they did send or place poison.
Yes, and the maple syrup heist, they're like, well, what are they going to do if we don't catch them?
Get fat. I mean,
right. They're going to eat a lot of maple syrup, maybe make some money from roadside stands.
Eat some pancakes, but
yeah. So that may be why they're. All right. Well, check out buymeacoffee.com/mmmayhem. It helps support our overhead for keeping the podcast going. And thank you for listening.
Yes. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to hear us talk about,
hit us up.
Just let us know. We would love to hear from you.
Indeed.
So have a good week. We'll talk to you next week.
And good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans.